Funding for the following program provided by the Japan Center for Information and Cultural Affairs.
Welcome to this special edition of the Asia Report. I'm Ken Eckhart. This past March, Scuba Expo 85 opened in Japan and is expected to attract over 20 million visitors during its 6-month run. Expo organizers are hoping visitors to the International Exposition will leave with a better understanding of how the world's growing economic, social, and cultural problems might be solved. Hope Robertson was one of the first visitors to the fair, and in this report, she tells how many of the fair's exhibits are already being worked into today's technology.
Imagine a train that flies above the ground. Imagine robots that can talk to you, serve you dinner, and entertain on stage. Imagine a TV screen as big as a drive-in theater. Imagine cars and traffic controlled by computers. Imagine the future. You're looking at Scuba Expo 85, Japan's International Exposition of Science and Technology. I'm Hope Robertson. In this special edition of the Asia Report, you'll see computers, robots, giant inventions, small creations, peeks into the future. But tomorrow won't be written by computers or carried out by robots. Those are only tools of man. Asians, Europeans, Americans. And much of what will happen tomorrow has already begun today. We've come a long way in the 2 million years scientists estimate we've lived on this planet. Our steps toward the 21st century have followed a long line of footsteps. Just as today most of us can glance at our wristwatches to determine the date, Korean astronomers in 1433 used this to measure the stars and make their calculations. 46 other foreign governments brought parts of their culture, old and new, to share at Scuba. Models of technology from Moscow, a manned space station that can travel around the Earth for months, and plans closer to home, futuristic-looking houses in an enclosed city. The Chinese displayed their word processors, leaving the other 5 or 6 that exist in China back at home. But as one might expect, their hosts had a home field advantage. Masters of miniaturization, the Japanese government and the 28 participating corporations managed to create the illusion of grandeur on a space smaller than 1 square mile. For the Japanese, what's important is the way it feels, not the way it is. The stereoscopic frame appears to be floating in midair. You must disregard the impulse to figure out that it's an illusion created by the mirror finish on the building. This, too, is just an illustration, true to size, but not a true-to-life satellite Earth station. If Japan is to lead the world into the 21st century, it hopes to do so with Scuba. 1/5 of Japan's population has been involved in creating the expo. Their hope, that a new generation can build even higher. Scuba's $3 billion price tag is merely an investment to attract foreign visitors today to draw world attention tomorrow. In the shape of an ancient burial mound, we can see that man is still working on some basic problems, like 3D television. You can see 3 dimensions by wearing those funny glasses, and now by standing directly in front of a special 3D screen. But you still can't have a 3D TV party in your living room. You may soon be able to reduce the space you need for the tube, in part because the cathode ray tube itself is disappearing. The day of hang-on-the-wall television sets is finally here. What more can be done to the television screen that hasn't already been done at Scuba? Pictures come in multitudes, a video mosaic. In the country that practically invented video, everyone wants to get his face on TV. The words on TV have taken on new dimensions here at the Scuba Exposition. I'm standing inside the world's largest television. At over 14 stories tall, the name Jumbotron is no exaggeration. You've heard of feeling 6 feet tall? Well, this screen has made me over 60 feet tall. So I asked Sony how much it would cost to take Jumbotron home with me. I was told it would be 30 billion yen, which is about $12 million. So obviously we're not going to see Jumbotron in your neighborhood anytime soon. But the technology used to develop this huge picture can be transferred to the small screen in your home. You might find it hard to imagine how a screen that looks like a huge wall itself could ever make it possible for you to have a wall-hanging TV. It's a 2,000-inch screen that uses as much electricity as a small city. But inside this small city are some very small parts. The screen itself is made up of 450,000 of these trinolights. Each one has 3 colors, red, blue, and green. Those lights stay on all the time, but the light shade or intensity is controlled digitally by computer, so the picture is precise and brighter than a regular TV screen. Behind that giant picture, it takes a crew of 3 or 4 to operate the computer and select the video. Jumbotron is this man's once-in-a-lifetime dream come true. Chief Engineer Satoshi Shimada says it may be a once-in-a-lifetime creation.
We plan to utilize this technology from now on. Since we have proved that our technology is feasible for this size, we are getting a lot of inquiries. So we are planning to make smaller size screens applying the same technology. There would not be very many places we could put this big screen.
But for now, Jumbotron stands high above Scuba, patiently allowing visitors to jump into its mammoth picture. Who knows, it may be their once-in-a-lifetime chance to be 60 feet tall. Believe it or not, this is what we found right in the heart of the Scuba Exposition, one small piece of solitude. Well, this grove of trees is quite a contrast to the giant screens, the satellites, and the brightly colored pavilions. But it's also a reminder of what this whole area used to look like 20 years ago. Back then, all this was undeveloped, green fields, groves of trees. But in 1965, the Japanese government began planning to build a city just for science and research. They called it Scuba Science City, and they encouraged research institutions and universities to build here rather than nearby overcrowded Tokyo. Scuba is a city planned right down to the centralized heating and cooling and garbage pickup. It's Japan's first functioning model for the 21st century, the first technopolis. With Technopolis, Japan hopes to blend government, industry, and research. 19 other Technopolis sites have been planned for the rest of Japan. We're going to look at 2 in the country's southwest island, Kyushu. If you take the train starting in Tokyo, you can ride for hours without noticing that you've traveled through several cities. People are packed tightly. Space is a premium. But it's the Japanese competitive nature to be at the hub of things, so far away Kyushu has never taken off in terms of industry. Its economy has been grounded, so to speak, in agriculture. But today, integrated circuits are the new rice of industry. The island now accounts for 40% of Japan's computer chips. Kyushu is becoming known as Silicon Island, another borrowed idea the Japanese intend to improve. Michinori Kudo is president of one of Kyushu's new electronics companies in the area known as Oita. 60% of his sales go to Silicon Valley, California.
We do not take the approach, like Silicon Valley, to concentrate a lot of factories in a small area. Instead, we place high-tech factories sparsely in the green area of farmland.
And just as the man said, his factory is built right up to the edge of the grape and orange fields of a local farmer. Kudo calls that harmony between nature and technology. And in fact, farmers have welcomed the new factories. Their sons and daughters had been moving away to Tokyo or Yokohama for work. Now they're coming home again. Even the farmers' wives have new careers. These 2 women told me they can't imagine going back to farm work. Even though their jobs might seem dull and repetitive, they say they're part of a team making a good product, and it makes them feel good. More than 100 miles away from Oita, in the city of Kumamoto, This company makes production systems that are sold worldwide, systems that make cars, computers, video recorders. When Yasunari Hirata started this business 35 years ago, it was just him and his father trying to make a living. In the last 5 years, his business has grown 500%. With offices in the United States and England, Hirata is looking to Korea, Singapore, and China for expansion. Because the company's sales are worldwide, none of the 860 employees here lost their jobs when an economic winter blasted into Kumamoto in the late 70s. Recession drove most young graduating engineers, scientists, and designers north to Tokyo. In a country with strong family ties, young sons don't usually leave their parents unless it's absolutely necessary. Just as children are pampered and cared for when they're young, their parents are still part of the family when they are old. Those traditions still stand, unshaken by modern technology, just as the Kumamoto Castle withstood gunfire in the 17th century. The Technopolis idea isn't aimed at destroying traditions. Its thrust is harmony, universities and high-tech companies to attract and keep the young and their brain power, leaving agriculture to thrive. Spring has made the wheat fields green and brought new riches to Kumamoto. Companies like Tokyo Electron gave Tatsuyuki Fukushima the chance to come home and care for his parents. But having tasted life in Tokyo, Oichi Murakami wasn't quite so anxious to move back to the farm.
I was happy to come back, but one thing that concerns me is that compared to Tokyo, Kumamoto has not developed a good transportation system to move around. Tokyo also has a lot of concentrated companies that makes the information flow hard to reach here.
Kyushu is caught in a delicate balance, hoping to speed along into the high-tech age out of what might seem dark ages in terms of communications and transportation. And yet, in order to build, Kyushu needs investment from companies that settle there, a tax base. But to attract those firms, Kyushu's sales force has to make the island seem as modern and attractive as possible. It's a tough assignment, but not too tough for a man who used to discourage foreign investment. Morihiko Hiramatsu used to work in Tokyo regulating imports. He remembers having a hand in putting restrictions on Texas Instruments when that company tried to break into the Japanese market.
Before, Japanese were eager to borrow American technology, but had a negative attitude for importing U.S. products like cars or computers. But now, governors in Japan are very enthusiastic to invite U.S. firms to produce or sell American products in Japan. Now, being governor of Oita, I would welcome TI and other American firms. I am living evidence of this change.
So eager are Technopolis governors to attract American firms that in some cases they've stepped on each other's toes to do it. Material Research Corporation just moved to Oita, but had been making plans in Kumamoto. That is, until an aggressive Hiramatsu got MRC a 200 million yen loan through Japanese banks at 6% interest. And there are other incentives for foreign companies: tax breaks, depreciation allowances, loan guarantees, arms open wide that used to be folded tight.
I believe that we should become internationalized to bring in more U.S. firms so that good technology from the U.S. will be transferred to Japanese firms. Also, Americans are saying that Japanese markets are closed, so I would like to show them that American companies can be successful in Japan.
America's level of software technology is very high and advanced, but technology to make hardware with care and with no defect, Japan is ahead there. I have a philosophy that mixed blood produces a pretty child. So if we make the United States' top technology and Japan's top technology marry, we can produce the prettiest child in the world.
That child is the Japanese hope to build its Technopolis zones, to carry the nation to the year 2000. It seems that World's Fairs have always acted as self-appointed crystal balls that can somehow show us the future. Each one promises new tomorrows.
The arrival of the train of today and tomorrow, the Streamliner Deluxe. All aboard!
For the visitors to the 1939 World's Fair in New York, some of those promises may have seemed remote.
And here he comes, ladies and gentlemen, walking up to greet you under his own power.
But as we look back from their tomorrow, many of their dreams really did come true.
And now we see a great river city of 1960. Here is an American city replanned around a highly developed, modern traffic system. By means of the ramped loops, cars may make right and left turns at rates of speed up to 50 miles per hour.
And then others are still promises for our tomorrow.
Safe distance between cars is maintained by automatic radio control. Curved sides assist the driver in keeping his car within the proper lane.
With that in mind, it may be hard to believe Scuba's promise that someday we'll have trains that will speed along above the ground. And yet high-speed surface transport, or HSST, has already been tested up to 187 miles an hour. For now, the HSST is just a taste of the future. Here at Scuba, its top speed is only 25 miles an hour, so we won't get quite the thrill of zipping along on a cushion of air. But the ride itself is just as the promotional material says, like a flying carpet. It's hard to truly appreciate the train of the future until you've taken a ride on the train of Japan's present, the Shinkansen, or bullet train. It's fast. The trip from Osaka to Tokyo takes about 3 hours on Shinkansen. By car or regular passenger train, it would take an entire day. But you can see for yourself, the ride isn't nearly as smooth as on HSST. What makes HSST so smooth is it doesn't ride on a track, it actually flies 1 centimeter above on a magnetic levitation system. Electromagnets raise the cars, leaving a gap of 1 centimeter between them and the track. A linear induction motor propels HSST very quietly. Jeffrey Tudor works for Japan Airlines, the company that developed HSST. He's ridden in one of the experimental models at 90 miles an hour and compares it to a well-sprung sports car.
Well, it's rather eerie. It's very, very smooth, and it's very, very quiet. You can just hear the wind whistling by the windows, and very, very gentle breeze. There's no vibration. There's no exhaust gas. There's no noise. It's a very compatible transport system, especially in an urban area.
The West Germans are testing a similar system, Transrapid, which they hope will speed along at 240 miles an hour. And magnetic levitation is being used at Birmingham, England's airport on a small scale. High-speed surface transport is close to being a reality, but right now it costs 15% more to build than conventional railroad track. And even if it doesn't become the train of our future, it will always be, for visitors here, a memory from a World's Fair. We know enough about the human body to invent robots that can actually imitate our own actions. Enough to invent machines that can scan our bodies and tell us what ails us. We know so much, and yet for all the sparkles of high technology, we're still in the dark, still looking for a cure for Japan's #1 and America's #2 killer, cancer. They stand in line from 9 to 11 in the morning, 4 days a week. Friends and relatives of those stricken with cancer. They've heard about what some are calling a miracle cure, the Maruyama vaccine. At an information session at this research institute, Dr. Chisato Maruyama appears on the screen speaking of the dramatic effects of his injection therapy. As many as 70 people a day are told that the so-called wonder vaccine is effective in many cases thought to be hopeless. Maruyama and his staff review files of those seeking treatment. The patients themselves aren't there. In Japan, it's common for relatives and doctors to shield them from the knowledge that they have cancer. So most patients think the vaccine they're given by family doctors is treatment for a minor condition, even though the majority of patients are terminal when entering the 5-year program.
Usually, those who come here are those who have tried everything before, such as X-ray treatment or chemotherapy. This is a last resort, and patients are leaving with good results.
Maruyama has worked on the vaccine since 1946 when he discovered that patients with tuberculosis rarely had cancer. He extracted a vaccine from TB bacilli and started injecting patients who had their doctor's permission.
It's a function of the immune system. The vaccine from the TB bacilli attaches itself to antibodies, which attack the cancer cell.
The vaccine, given 3 times a week at a cost of $18, has another great advantage, says Maruyama.
Many cancer medicines tend to have strong side effects, and patients die from these side effects rather than cancer. My vaccine has no side effects.
A patient in his 70s is pleased with the vaccine's effect on his stomach cancer. It's given him new hope, a promised 5-year survival rate. This man's wife is leading an active life, he says, after being in the last stages of uterine cancer. But despite claims by Maruyama and the patients we talked to, Japan's Ministry of Health and Welfare says the vaccine can't go on the market. There is a need, they say, for conclusive studies and animal research before the vaccine can be approved. Most other cancer research in Japan is based on prevention and early diagnosis. Kaketscan is a large facility where some of that research may lead to a cure. Microbiologists and immunologists have joined forces. So far, they've learned a lot about how cancer cells develop. They've come up with a hepatitis vaccine, which may have an effect on hepatoma, which is cancer of the liver. And there's another breakthrough. Dr. Nobuya Otomo talks about so-called missile therapy. He says newly discovered monoclonal antibodies combined with a drug or toxin can target the cancer much like a guided missile.
That antibody brings such drug to cancerous tumor cell or organ, and it kills the tumor.
Is missile therapy a cancer cure?
Theoretically, yes.
But Otomo adds that while animal research looks promising, it will take some time before the antibody is ready for humans. He hopes to begin clinical tests on patients within a few years. In order to help research facilities like Kaketscan, the Japanese government has started its first cell bank. This laboratory in Tokyo is part of a 10-year strategy for cancer control, furnishing cells to researchers. Marion Harnoy is here from the United States on a research exchange program. Although the Japanese are trying to catch up with this kind of research, Harnoy says that in some ways this facility is better than many U.S. cell banks.
It compares very favorably because most of the equipment is new and of the best quality.
Harnoy says the goal is to collect many lines of cells. Richly stocked U.S. cell banks were used as a Japanese model. These particular cells were sent from the United States, and U.S. researchers may be joined soon by others from around the world in the cooperative venture. They hope their work may accelerate a cancer cure.
And maybe instead of 20 years, maybe we'll have some 10 years. Who knows?
Yet, still the lines at the Maruyama Clinic show the desperation of those who can't wait another day for that future. It's nighttime at Tsukuba, and here, darkness is not of the bleak sort. It's dressed up with lights. Laser beams beckon. 2 fiery gas balls flicker with the wind. Even a high-tech exhibition like this retains its carnival roots. Doesn't this scene take you back to the old house of glass where everyone looks funny, stretched out, or squeezed in? And naturally, Tsukuba has a 1985 version of the caricature artist who will sketch a likeness in a matter of minutes. Only this one has a camera lens for eyes and steel clamps for hands. The fact is, the Japanese people have been in the robot-making business for hundreds of years. The karakuri puppets like this one were built as early as the 1600s with intricate clockwork movements. Some were even used to serve tea. The only thing that really seems to have changed in almost 400 years is now they have brains of a sort, computers. Computer programs allow these robots to carve a block of ice precisely in a set pattern. And a computer, one whole room full, is responsible for Wasubat, the entertainer. Close your eyes and see if you can tell it's just a robot. Wasubot can read any piece of standardized score set before it. In other words, the computer translates the music that's on paper and converts it into digital movements. What you hear is a combination of computer programming controlling a physical design built by Koichi Washimi.
It has 5 fingers on both hands and can play the electric organ just like human beings. Secondly, it has an eye like a human, and it reads the score to play an organ. Finally, it also has a mouth and ear and can communicate with people as well as play music. A human being can hit a key 8 times a second, but this robot can hit it 15 times a second, almost twice as fast as a human.
It sounds impressive, but can you imagine hearing 15 notes a second? And that leaves us at the door to the future. What more can we ask computers to do for us? Think? Kazuhiro Fuchi is leading a group of Japanese researchers in trying to answer that question. The Institute for New Generation Computer Technology is a mix between Japanese government money and private industry brains. Together as ICOT, they want to move forward in the search for artificial intelligence.
It is already difficult enough to produce a robot that can walk. We have made the robot with that ability, which still looks awkward. By the same token, a computer that thinks and also walks like a human being, the ultimate goal, still lies far ahead. But we will be producing that computer, even though it still may be toddling about.
No matter how complicated computers seem to be, a computer's basic brain function still consists of making true and false choices, yes or no, on or off. Computers that can translate sentences from one language to another. Computers that compose simple melodies with the help of a programmer. Those are the forerunners of a 5th generation of computers that Fuchi expects will take years of methodical work to develop.
It's the theme for us to create a new era for human life. The task has to be performed by not just one, but many powerful countries as a whole. It can be considered as the theme for mankind.
After the Expo in Paris, 1889, France intended to completely dismantle its Expo site. But the French left something behind, the Eiffel Tower. Well, according to World Expo rules, Tsukuba is also slated for demolition immediately after its 6-month run. But like the French 100 years before, the Japanese want to leave something behind. Perhaps what will remain from the high-tech Expo of 1985 is still in some child's imagination. From Tsukuba, Japan, I'm Hope Robertson for the Asia Report.
The Asia Report is a cooperative venture of Shinzen Productions and Oregon Public Broadcasting. They are solely responsible for its content.
Funding for the preceding program provided by the Japan Center for Information and Cultural Affairs.